एक अवेयरनेस तो होनी चाहिए कि आप कुछ ऐसा कह रहे हैं अपनी फिल्म में which has the possibility of having adverse effect on people, on our society. Women, if you think about it, directors of photography, कितनी कम है, you could count on just on 2 hands. Amazon had done a study and it's still only like 10%, 15%. These are very small numbers. Women's cricket team नहीं कहें, क्यों नहीं कहें? If I'm feeling scared, if I'm nervous, if I don't know, why is it so bad for me to show that? Hi, I'm Tanuja Chandra. I'm with Stutee at Fever FM.
Hi guys, मैं हूँ स्तुति and welcome to another brand new episode of Women at Work. And here, so excited to have director Tanuja Chandra.
Thank you.
इन्होंने कुछ बेहतरीन फिल्में लिखी हैं, डायरेक्ट करी हैं. हाल ही में इनकी डॉक्यू सीरीज आपने देखी होगी wedding.com. तो इन सारी चीज़ों के बारे में बात करेंगे. अबाउट वर्क, yes, but how you navigate life, work, love, pleasure, all of that. Okay. So thank you so much for taking out the time.
Thank you for having me.
Every time I've met you, तनुजा, you are composed.
अच्छा.
ठीक है, ऐसे सुंदर लगती हैं ना, तैयार होके आती हैं और एक परमानेंट स्माइल इनके चेहरे में होती है. ये आप हमेशा काम रहती हैं? काम हिंदी वाला भी आपका चलता रहता है, इंग्लिश वाला भी होता है, कैसे होता है?
नहीं, मेरा हिंदी वाला काम तो चलता रहता है, but I'm not at all calm otherwise.
Oh, okay. So, do you have two selves, one on set, which I probably have not seen, when you're handling those stars and actors, and one for us?
So I'm pretty anxious. मतलब set में तो there's always tension. तो कभी-कभी मतलब चिल्लाना कभी-कभी होता है, but more than that I'm very pushy. I'm always aggressive. I'm pushing because वो काम खत्म करने, मतलब we have one day this, आज की शिफ्ट में इतना शूट करना है, वो सब all that is never far from the director's mind. हालांकि you're supposed to create beauty, you're supposed to create moments, you're supposed to have wonderful acting. That personality is also there. I'm also naturally sort of the restless kind and chatty sometimes also very quiet. I do like to laugh a lot, and I've got that from my mother. Mine and my sister's and my mother's laughter is the same.
Yeah.
We laugh loud.
Yeah.
We also get upset easily. My mother does. My sister's a calm one actually.
Yeah. But I'm glad you brought up your family. And at this point, आप लोगों को पता ही होगा, पर मैं बता दूं, इनकी मदर, उन्होंने आइकॉनिक फिल्में लिखी हैं. चांदनी शी रोट, प्रेम रोग शी रोट, कामना चंद्रा. ओके, तो उनकी आप बेटी हैं. योर सिस्टर अनुपमा चोपड़ा, and I work closely with her at the Film Critics Guild, is of course world famous film critic, मैं उनको कहूँ. विक्रम चंद्रा, आपके ब्रदर, again world famous author. तो इतनी illustrious family में growing up, how was your childhood? Was there a lot of pressure? बोलते हैं कि we bring up our sons and daughters अलग अलग तरीके से. Did you face that?
No, actually, there was no pressure. I feel that my parents were the kind who, we were all pretty studious actually, naturally. They didn't ever have to, मतलब उनको इस तरह से डांटना नहीं पड़ता था कि तुम लोग पढ़ाई नहीं करते. हम अपने आप ही कर लेते थे पढ़ाई. और we performed well at school. My sister performed the best, FYI. I also did well, but sometimes I'd kind of be impatient with studies. But I'd always do well. So my parents never had to push us to do work or to even behave and not be too naughty. We were naughty kids, but they used to be very generous with us. So there was never this pressure, and also there was no difference as such actually. In fact, if you ask me, we were loved more than my brother in some ways.
How lovely, how beautiful to have this sort of love बचपन में, because कई incidents ऐसे होते हैं जो इंसान को scar कर देता है, या बाद में आपको लगता है कि ये क्यों हुआ. But society की सच्चाई ये है कि sexism तो है, gender discrimination है. तो your first brush with that, जब तनुजा को लगा कि अरे I didn't face this growing up, पर ये exist करता है.
I have always been very ambitious, and I've always wanted to not let my gender stop me from doing anything while being completely anxiety filled and scared about everything. So everything gives me fear, but that doesn't stop me from doing it, you know. And I think that, of course, when I first started directing, before my movies, I was actually long time back. When you must have been just a little toddler, I think. I used to work for a company called Plus Channel. We used to make video magazines.
Okay.
And satellite TV was just starting out. So that company was filled with women. Young girls, very very hardworking, very meticulous. So my start as a career was in the right atmosphere, where the heads of the company was really wonderful gentlemen called Amit Khanna and Mr. Mahesh Bhatt. So these were my first bosses, and the first brush with work was of a deeply encouraging kind, And my first film was produced by Pooja Bhatt. So it was only when I arrived on set where I might have felt a little bit of that, where somebody would be looking around, somebody would come to meet, say, Sanjay Dutt, and he'd say, director kaun hai, or director kidhar hai? And I'd look at him straight into his eyes and say, main director hu. So they'd be a little surprised for a second. After the release, I found that to be in the shock of what they saw on screen. Like they're like, ooh, we didn't expect this from her. Meaning that we didn't expect this from a woman. You know? And women have been in darkness for centuries.
Yeah.
It's too older tradition where a woman is considered less, is oppressed, is suppressed, and it happens very much to this day in our country and around the world.
आपने कुछ words अभी conversation के time use किए कि आप ambitious हैं या आप थोड़ी aggressive हैं अपना काम निकलवाने में, और ये terms हम बहुत positive connotation के साथ for men use करते हैं कि अरे he's so driven, he's so this, he's so women ambitious, ये तो ध्यान नहीं देगी या सेंसिटिव नहीं है, या आपको ये सब कभी फेस करना पड़ा?
ऑफ कोर्स, आई मीन मतलब मैं उस तरह से गाली वाली तो नहीं देती, लेकिन आई फाइंड दैट इफ अ वुमन डज दैट, व्हाई शुड दैट बी सच अ रिमार्केबल थिंग? क्यों अगर आपको इस बात पे एतराज नहीं है, इफ अ मैन डज इट, व्हाई शुड इट बॉदर यू इफ अ वुमन डज इट? एंड आई डू थिंक दैट ये चीज तो कॉम्प्लीमेंट मानी जानी चाहिए कि आप एम्बिशियस हैं, या आप आप इवन इफ यू आर अग्रेसिव, you're moving with aggression, meaning you're driven, you're focused. You don't want to let it fall apart. I feel that अगर female presence बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छे से 50% होती, आधी female presence होती in the film industry, you'd automatically feel encouraged. You'd feel happy. You'd feel कि safe. So I feel that the work would also improve. But क्योंकि ये हमारा progress इतना slow रहा है, I think that there's a kind of a maybe nervousness also, unsurety. Also, if something doesn't work, then the whole world will turn around and tell you कि this was what you did wrong. आपको direction नहीं आता, आपको writing नहीं आती. Critics will completely decimate you without. And I'm not saying they need to be loving and polite, but I certainly feel they need to recognize from what the history of the film industry is, from where people are coming. Don't forget that there were no female directors, and then there were 3 at the time I was working. There were 3 or 4. Now if there are 50, 70, there needs to be 200.
200. Yeah. The difference is still a lot.
It's more complex than what people make it out to be. And I think कि वो complexities पहचाननी चाहिए, उन complexities को appreciate करना चाहिए. फिर you should have your critique, your opinion, recognizing that.
हम एक पूरी कोशिश करते हैं कि जेंडर प्रीफिक्स ना करें आपका काम, कि फीमेल प्लेयर, फीमेल डायरेक्टर.
मैं कहूँगी कीजिए.
हाँ, वो मैं आपका पर्सपेक्टिव जानना चाहती हूँ कि हम कहते हैं कि इंडियन वुमेन्स क्रिकेट टीम क्यों, जब आप इंडियन मेंस नहीं बोलते आप, बट फीमेल डायरेक्टर.
यस,
ये आप कहते हैं आप प्लीज करिए ये.
बिल्कुल.
व्हाई डू यू से दैट? और आपको क्या लगता है कि आपके जेंडर की वजह से एक अलग सेंसिटिविटी आती है आपके काम में?
इन एन इक्वल वर्ल्ड वी वुड नॉट नीड टू से इट. इट्स अ हाईली अनइक्वल वर्ल्ड, देयरफॉर इट नीड्स टू बी माइंडफुली said, appreciated, kept in mind that the female cricket team, for example, the women's cricket team, has not been around for as long as the men's cricket team. So how can you say that they should be looked at with the same lens? It cannot be. Women directors have not. Women, if you think about it, directors of photography, कितनी कम है. You could count on still just like maybe just on 2 hands. Whereas ठीक है, producers there are more, directors and writers, editors, maybe costume stylists. But Amazon had done a study and it's still only like 10%, 15%. These are very small numbers for us to already imagine कि हम female cricket director नहीं कहें, women's cricket team नहीं कहें, क्यों नहीं कहें, you know? And I think that we should consciously want more of it, you know? So mindfully करना पड़ेगा, नहीं तो फिर I make sure that in my own crew there's a large female presence, and I consciously do it. Because that's how we'll grow, you know. So, you know, I've been actually thinking about this a lot, you know. I've been reading a lot of books and I used to think the books written by women and books written by men, they feel different. Although, you know, people would say, "Arey, of course not, don't be stupid." But the fact is that they feel different and there's a kind of an inner richness, inner world richness that's there in women's storytelling.
Yeah.
And the men's will be sort of plot heavy. And don't forget, it's coming from centuries of experience. Whereas women, it's not centuries, it's this century's experience, you know, or maybe the last.
So, and also I think एक फर्क होता है जो characters, women characters that are written by women and even male characters that women write. उसमें भी जो आप tenderness की बात करें या sensitivity, तो I want to bring bring up Qarib Qarib Single. Such a beautiful love story, and of course what a performance by Irfan Khan, Parvati. But you know, of course जब आप ये लिखती हैं कहानियाँ या आप direct करते हैं, तो you delve into आपके अपने personal experiences.
Actually, और करीब करीब सिंगल की ओरिजिनल कहानी तो मेरी मदर ने लिखी थी many about 25 years ago, and I'd always loved that story. I'd always felt that it's such a sweet story. You know, Irfan used to say this कि इसको योगी को तो बहुत फेमिनिस्ट बनाया है. तो I said कि अगर स्क्रिप्ट में नहीं बनाएंगे, रियल लाइफ में तो होते ही कम है, तो अगर स्क्रिप्ट में नहीं होगा तो फिर और कहाँ होगा. So he was very happy about that. He loved the fact that here is a male character who, for all his annoying habits, is also aware of how strong and wonderful a woman can be. He's not better than them, you know. And so he liked the fact about her, about Parvati's character. So I think that of course it comes partly from one's experience and partly from one's aspiration.
Animal ले आए इस कॉन्वर्सेशन में एक सेगवे क्रैश की तरह. देखिए आपने एनिमल?
नहीं, मैंने नहीं देखी.
सुना है आपने एनिमल के बारे में? कैसे लगता है आपको सुन के?
कहाँ से शुरू करूँ? because for me, first of all, एक awareness तो होनी चाहिए कि you know आप कुछ ऐसा कह रहे हैं अपनी फिल्म में which has the possibility of having adverse effects on people, on our society. So while ये मैं ज़रूर कहूँगी कि films and books and TV series and all these things come from real life.
Of course.
Real life doesn't come from them, but you cannot absolve yourself of the responsibility of what you're saying because it does affect. It does affect people. And I'm saying, what happens is after a while you begin to think that is actually true. So you start to believe those things. But that's not true. That's not actually how. So very often I feel like, you know, who are these people and what are they saying? And so that's not exactly what. So या तो फिर वो बहुत ही noble, बहुत ही अच्छे दिल के, बहुत ही साफ दिल के होते हैं, which is also not reality. Or they are very violent and also oblivious of their violence. You know? And that's very dangerous.
And also somewhere being celebrated because that's being shown as a very, you know, quality to aspire for.
Yes. And that is actually the danger because life is not without violence. It is an extremely full of misery and violence, which I have nothing against showing as long as you're aware that you're showing something that is not to be admired, that is not to be thought of as this is what I want to be when I grow up. You know? So I have strong objection to that. If there will be people who speak up against it, that their voices should be heard and considered. And this is how we all grow. This is how society grows. They can do
and don't just make a film to troll people who didn't like your film. Like, you know, that seems to be the agenda.
No, or I'm saying if you have made it, then at least be like have that. If you felt so strongly about that subject, then allow others to come and debate with you about it. There's nothing wrong with that, as opposed to saying that, you know, you're foolish, you don't know anything. You know? So I think that that shuts down all dialogue.
It is. You're fully aware कि ये एक unequal world है.
Yes.
और हम फूल्स पैराडाइज में रहेंगे अगर हम कहें कि सब बदल रहा है या बदल चुका है. कोई ट्रिक्स हैं, बिकॉज ऑल वुमेन, आई नो अ लॉट ऑफ वुमेन हु डू दिस, कि आप यू डू योर हेयर इन अ सर्टेन वे कि आपको थोड़ी और आप असर्टिव लगो या लोग आपको सीरियसली लें. आपके हैं कोई टिप्स ट्रिक्स जो आप करते हैं?
Not the superficial kind in terms of dressing and all that. Of course, matlab, that's my personal taste. You know, the kind of clothes that I like to wear, or the way I like to say wear my makeup or whatever. That's my personal taste. But I feel personally that that a woman should dress exactly how she wants, you know, and there should be nothing stopping her from that. From wearing red lipstick, you know, and from keeping her hair open, and from dressing as sexy as she wants. There will be certain sort of let's call it like reaction, which may sometimes be good, sometimes not. That you have to deal with. So deal with that.
You know, हम female friendships की बात करते हैं कि कितना important है women supporting other women, but you know, we must also acknowledge the men in our lives. Talk to me a little about the male figures in your life who've shaped who you are today.
So my father, like I said, is a quiet type. But I remember when there was some sort of contentious issue in the house, he said, if there's a problem, come talk to me. You know, so there's no need to, if you feel your mother won't agree with you, come tell me. And I'll deal with everything. And I know several friends who had their father say this, that if anybody in the world has a problem with you, tell them to come to me, you know. And I think that's just amazing. So I think that kind of support is indispensable. I suddenly remembered मेरी पहली फिल्म में मैंने बहुत स्टॉलवर्ड्स के साथ काम किया इन दुश्मन. Of course starting with Mahesh Bhatt, लेकिन there was Anand Bakshi साहब, Sachin Bhaumik साहब who had written the story. Our editor was somebody who done over 100 films, Mr. Vaman Bhosle. So I remember बख्शी साहब स्पेशली, क्योंकि उनसे मिलने पे मुझे काफ़ी नर्वसनेस और डर लग रहा था. पहली बार तो मैंने कैंसिल ही कर दी मीटिंग. Oh my God. I called him and I said, मेरी तबीयत ठीक नहीं है बख्शी साहब, मैं बाद में आती थी. सर अच्छा ठीक है. फिर तो then I had to call him. So then when I went there to meet him, he had this big tray of medicine.
Okay.
He said, बताओ क्या बीमारी है. So I said, and मैं सोच रही हूँ मैं क्या बीमारी बताऊँ इनको. Then I, you know, spoke to him. He treated me. This is Anand Bakshi, who's written over 3,000 songs, who's a legend. He treated me a first-time director, like not a debutant director, but somebody who he respects and somebody he's very happy to work with. You know,
and open to ideas, open to listening.
Absolutely. You won't believe. Like once I felt, अरे बख्शी साहब थोड़ा सा ऐसे ही बात करते, क्योंकि he said, सिचुएशन तो तुमने सुना दी तनुजा, गाने कौन लिखेगा, ऐसे आप ही लिखेंगे और so then he said, अच्छा ठीक है बताता हूँ. तो I said, अरे what happened to him? Then he called me after a couple days, come over Tanuja. So I said, okay. So then he had written 15 antras. You know, to get 2 written is really what I needed. He had written 15. And then I'd say that थोड़ा डर के I used to say कि बख्शी साहब ये लाइन बहुत अच्छी, इसको इसके साथ जोड़ दें. तो he said, क्यों नहीं जोड़ दें, हम गाना लिख रहे हैं, चांद पे थोड़ी जा रहे हैं. So, you know, he respected. Then after seeing the movie, he said, अरे तनुजा कहाँ कैमरा घुमाती हो. So it was just wonderful to have, especially when you're a young person starting out, you know, to have this much older person tell you that you have talent. These are things we all want to hear.
You know, you brought up wedding.com, और जब मैं ये देख रही थी, my heart was breaking. मुझे बहुत दुख हो रहा था. And just to see these really smart, articulate women, you know, जब आप ये रिकॉर्ड करी थी और आपने इन महिलाओं का इंटरव्यू किया, इनकी testimonies, you know, what were you feeling?
So actually, when my producer at BBC Studios, Neha Khurana, approached me for this project, they had already been researching it for a while before I joined hands. उसके बाद फिर हमारी जो contributors थी उनके साथ मुलाकात हुई. We did mock interviews. So because I needed them to feel safe, I needed them to open their hearts out to me बट आई ऑल्सो कुडंट बी इन दिस केस, देर इज नो, क्योंकि वो एक्टर नहीं है, मैं उनको पुश नहीं कर सकती. इस पर्टिकुलर प्रोजेक्ट में देयर वाज नो अमाउंट ऑफ aggression that I could have at all, you know. So I had to go very, very gentle, very soft, and I had to be somebody who they could trust. अब वो trust तभी आता है जब actually वाकई में वो trust हो. And from my side, I was very sure कि यहाँ पे zero judgment है. There is nothing wrong you have done. You may have been fooled by the person. You may have fallen in love with a person who's a cheat and a liar and a deceiver. That's not something wrong with you. You know, how is that anything wrong? So for me, I was holding their hands. I was their sister. I was in full support, and I never for 1 minute thought कि इन्होंने कुछ गलत किया. So they just kind of opened their house, or they even cried in the interviews. And I think that safety, क्योंकि हम सबसे पहले ये पूछते हैं कि अरे हाउ कुड यू डू दिस. पुलिस भी वही पूछती है, लॉ भी यही पूछता है कि हाउ कुड यू डू दिस. द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन एक्चुअली शुड बी हाउ कुड ही डू दिस टू यू, व्हाई डिड ही डू दिस, हाउ डेयर ही डू दिस. तो वो फ्रेमिंग ही गलत है. सो इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दैट वी क्वेश्चन, हमारे जो ये प्रश्न है वही बदलें पहले. फिर समाज कहीं
हमेशा हमारी सेफ्टी, हमारे साथ जो ओनर्स हम पर ही डाला जाता है
पूरी तरह से
कि अपनी इज्जत, अपनी सेफ्टी सब कुछ
संभालो. एंड पहले तो ये प्रेशर कि शादी करो. उस प्रेशर में आके अगर आपने किसी से बातचीत शुरू की हो जो आपसे कहता है कि मैं डाउरी में बिलीव नहीं करता, मैं बहुत ही खुश हूँ कि आप इंडिपेंडेंट वर्किंग वुमन है, तो देन यू फील अरे इस तरह के तो बहुत कम होते हैं, तो आई एम वेरी हैप्पी. फिर वो गलती हो जाए, फिर आपका पैसा लुट जाए, फिर पूरी तो वही लोग जिन्होंने प्रेशर किया वही लोग कहते हैं हाउ कुड यू डू दिस. दे जस्ट लीव यू अलोन.
कितना जरूरी है आपके हिसाब से तनुजा टू हैव फीमेल रोल मॉडल्स. और यहाँ पे मैं आंटी सुधा, आंटी राधा को लेकर आऊंगी. आई थॉट इट वाज ब्यूटीफुल. ये अगर आपने नहीं देखी यू मस्ट सी, जहाँ पे आपने अपनी आंट्स को फॉलो किया. they are living together, they are old, and their friendship, you know how they are now dependent on each other, and you know they talk about their life experiences and everything that shaped them. In fact, for a lot of things that we feel हमें आसानी से मिली हैं, we have to thank those generations who've fought, who've done that first fight, as they say.
So आंटी सुधा, आंटी राधा तो of course मेरी दो बुआ, very old, दो बहनें, you know, so it's actually a very nice retirement plan. You know, जब आपके their husbands had passed away, बच्चे और grandchildren old enough, तो वो बिल्कुल ही in a way they were completely fully retired, and they both went to the village to live with each other. और उनके finally, I'm saying that finally they actually in many ways had the life that they never had, where they could just relax. और उनके 6 लोग हैं उनके जो हेल्प हैं वो उनकी देखभाल कर रहे हैं, एंड दे रियली केयर फॉर देम. और फिर ये दोनों एक दूसरे से लड़ती भी हैं और एक दूसरे से के साथ गॉसिप भी करती हैं. वो जो हेल्प की समटाइम्स बिचिंग भी करती हैं, अब हेल्प को डांटती भी हैं, बट हेल्प को प्यार भी करती हैं. उनको सबको दे हैव गिवन फार्म, लिटिल पीसेस ऑफ फार्म लैंड, ताकि उनकी ओल्ड एज में हेल्प मिले. सो आई फील दैट यस इट्स ट्रू कि देयर इज सो मच टू लर्न फ्रॉम ओल्ड पीपल. In fact, there's a beautiful African proverb that says that when an old person passes away, it's as if a library has burned to the ground, you know, because their experience, their knowledge, we'll never know what these people lived. So unless it's archived in books, in movies, even fiction, I'm saying this should be all with lots of research done with older people brought into it, because you know I love the idea that live on your own. Why be dependent on somebody? Two sisters living on their own with each other. How sweet and lovely.
And they're having the time of their lives.
They totally. That's for the first time. They're saying they don't listen to the doctor. They used to eat what they want, do what they want, you know, sleep when they want. Then वो थोड़ा सा उठ के ऐसे ऐसे करती थी. ऐसे बुआ क्या कर रही हो? योगा कर रही हो. So it's a beautiful sunset time. Your autumn of your life, you know.
Lovely. Finally, Tanuja, Women at Work, my segment का नाम है. Have you faced boys club culture? आपको वो नहीं मिल रहा जो आप चाहती हैं because of your gender. कैसे डील किया आपने ऐसा सिचुएशन?
मतलब I've had lots of जिसको हम स्लाइड्स बोलते हैं इंग्लिश में, where people say स्क्रिप्ट बड़ी अच्छी है but तनुजा नहीं डायरेक्ट कर पाएगी, like that, right to my face.
To your face.
Yes.
Wow.
And people completely judging the work I've done.
Yeah.
And this is where I have a problem with the critics, because that also sort of goes into all other opinions as well. Which is that from all the stuff that you didn't like, find the one thing that you liked, or the one thing that the filmmaker was trying to do, even if it was flawed, and whether if it was imperfect and it didn't work. Find that one thing that they did that you found to be interesting, new, innovative. So I've had plenty of criticism.
But that's something मतलब एक director और with your experience को बोला जाए कि ये नहीं कर पाएंगी,
yes,
क्योंकि ये महिला हैं तो इनसे तो नहीं हो पाएगा.
So I'll tell you, I mean, I'm not certain that men haven't also faced that.
Do you give it back immediately? What's your tactic? आप कहते हैं कि करेंगे तो हम ही धीरे-धीरे इन्हें जवाब दे भी देंगे.
It depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do want to sort of fight and say that I disagree. Sometimes you bear the humiliation, and of course you go through anguish, deep anguish. Sometimes, and the sad part is you also do question yourself and your decision making, your ideas that didn't work. But where it's actually really harmful is that you tried something, right? You wanted to break out of a mold, you tried something that didn't work. Then you fall back on the tried and tested, and that's the most harmful thing, So actually, the anything that was original, new, unusual, unique, उस चीज को बढ़ावा नहीं मिलता, and in fact that चीज उस चीज को ऐसा मतलब दबा दिया जाता है. Then you find that, oh no, going back into that zone was even a bigger mistake. Then you really come out thinking, hey, my voice is important, no matter how imperfect, but I have to use that voice because that's all I have. And I'm a unique person, right? Each of us, by the way, our genetic makeup has never been there. It'll never be there in the world. So it's amazing. We are truly unique. So I think that is all we have, and then you fall back on that. But फिर वो काफ़ी साल लग जाते हैं उस चीज़ में, उस चीज़ को तय करने में, उस रास्ते को तय करने में, और you go through huge ups and downs, and filmmaking is that. Filmmaking में अगर आप की फिल्म या सीरीज़ या जो भी आपने लास्ट बनाया वो सक्सेसफुल हो, तो आप बहुत ही क्रिएटिव हैं और आप बहुत इंटेलिजेंट हैं और आप बहुत बढ़िया डायरेक्टर हैं. और अगर वो उस चीज़ को नाकामयाबी का सामना करना पड़ा तो फिर आपको आपका काम नहीं आता. सो you really have to be strong actually. But they say that failure teaches you, and it's true. हालांकि whoever says failure teaches you will also not stand by you when failure happens. But failure does teach you a lot, and so I've had my fair share of it.
And but you've risen.
Yes.
And you're here.
Yes.
Thank you so much. आपने इतने honesty के साथ अपने life के इतने सारे incidents हमारे साथ share किए. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.